Good morning, everybody, and welcome for another Strategic Narrative Underground session. I welcome you every Thursday here from Seattle. This is Guillaume Wiatr. I am the principal and founder of MetaHelm. MetaHelm is a strategy consulting firm. We help CEOs, executive leaders, founders, innovators, entrepreneurs create a strategic narrative so that it helps their company grow, get to the next level of engagement and success. Every Thursday, I welcome you. I welcome a few of you here that have shown up religiously since I started this in May. So thank you so much for being here. I focus every Thursday on one specific facet of what I call a strategic narrative. And during this session, I will illustrate this concept with a case study. The case study today is the company called Arcimoto. It's a company based in Oregon, in the United States, and they produce a very fun product. It's a three-wheel vehicle, electric vehicle. All right. This conversation is going to last for about 30 minutes. I hope it sparks a conversation. I have to say, I tend to talk a lot because it's a presentation. But that said, please interrupt me, ask questions. Hopefully, this new format that I've been working on is more prone to that. Yeah, let's see how this works. So, without further ado, I want to share some visuals with you. Can you guys see this? Probably. And okay. I need to bring you back here. There we go. Wonderful. So today, the company we're going to look at is called Arcimoto. Before I go into the case study, I'd like to quickly go over the fundamental of the strategic narrative model that I created over the years. Just a few reminders for some of you and maybe some new concepts for you. I make a difference between a story and a narrative. I see that story and narrative are two words used interchangeably. And over the years, I noticed that we are probably missing an opportunity to tap into something bigger than just storytelling, the traditional approach of storytelling in business when we talk about a narrative. And when we talk about a narrative, we are shifting towards a more futuristic view of an initiative, of an idea, of a movement, a view that is more open-minded, because the biggest difference is that we turn people from an audience to participants. And that's because the story has already happened. It's closed-ended. We know it is from the past. So we know what happened. Some stories are still unfolding. But if we turn to the future and we bring in an interpretation of some of those stories, we bring in a point of view. And in business, this is really interesting because every company has a point of view, whether it is a commonly accepted point of view or an innovative point of view. That's what we're exploring today in the concept of strategic narrative. It has many implications. This is my definition of a strategic narrative. It's a system of stories that you build intentionally to mobilize people to participate in a new opportunity. So this is very much the literal and technical definition. There's a lot to unpack behind this, in those words. I do this in great detail during my my workshop, the strategic narrative workshop. There is a new one starting on September 14th. We're not going to do that today, but I still want to start to create a common, understanding, a common definition. And by design, definitions they're never done. They evolve over time. So as of today, that's the best I could come up with. There's a few important things here. When we call what I mean by a strategic narrative is not an important narrative, not just that. Yes, it is important. What I mean by this is that a strategic narrative is a compass for company governance. It's a strategy tool. It's a decision-making tool and an execution tool. That's what I mean by this. So therefore, this is not just about marketing and sales. This is not just about PR communications and making your company look good. It's about very much how you run it from the inside and from the get-go. So if we're talking about a system of stories, let me show you the system of stories. I'm just going to move that over here. All right, there are 4 main areas for the stories, and they are placed on this map based on 2 axes, internal to external, individual to collective. This is really how every company leader, founder really think about their organization and even about themselves. Why did they start it in the first place? That's the origin story. What motivated them to come up with an innovation, for example, an invention, and what is the opportunity that they're trying to achieve, not just for them, not just in terms of economics, but for everyone around. Because if you can't just be focused on just making money for you, but what is the value that you provide out there? So this is probably a broader definition of opportunity that I bring to the table. But that's an important one. And then the perspective story is about how your intention is about achieving that opportunity. So we're going to see an example. So it's going to start making sense. But the perspective is really inside your company. It's the culture, it's the values, it's how you look at a certain problem and how you solve it. Ultimately, what matters is also to have a great product. You can't just have a good strategic narrative if you don't have a product that enables it. And that's the role, that's the function of the product story. This is something I've been looking at for many, many years, but this model is more recent in my career. And it was sparked by a lot of writing, I would say. Also, I wanted to put this more publicly, and I started those weekly meetings, in around May this year. And I've been working actively on structuring it. It's rapidly evolving. And one of the latest evolutions I added to this model is the connections between the strategic narrative and all the areas of a company, of an organization. So you see them here organized per those 4 quadrants, here. So let's just pick a few of them. Again, this is the goal is not to go into detail here, but just illustrate them. Most people think that the strategic narrative is this one right here. It's the marketing and the communication side of things. This is a very, very, that's a common assumption. I mean, you ask around you, and you will see that this is mostly how people see things. So I'm just going to highlight them here for you. This is maybe the social media aspect, and I want to open it up for discussion to think about this model as a much broader set of applications. When you have to make decisions on a daily basis, when you have to make choices, when you have to train your staff, even if you're a solo entrepreneur and everything hinges on your own mindset and motivation, this is your narrative talking to you. And if this narrative is not clear, you're gonna slow down. It's not gonna work very, very well. You're gonna run into tensions, and so you have to understand that narrative is just everywhere. This idea of strategic narrative is just everywhere. Now, that said, a very easy way to see it is in the marketing and the communication facet of a company, and that's probably at the moment what I rely on to do my own research, is what companies are willing to put out there publicly, their website, their videos, their collateral, people you can talk to with their customer service maybe. But very soon I've been thinking about starting a more substantial research project where I would go interview people from companies who would be interested in looking at the way they run through this lens. So that's just an idea for now. I'm just sharing it with you live. But hopefully in the future, I bring more examples about what's going on more internally. But for now, I rely a little bit on what's going on outside the company. So I just wanted to position that, because we're going to look at this company, Arcimoto, and this morning, we're just going to look at it from the outside. So keep that in mind. Okay. All right. Just want to see if there's any questions here, or if we should just jump into the case study? Cool. All right. So here's the company. We're gonna watch a video. It's 5 minutes. This video is 5, so it's gonna take a little bit of time. But if you're willing to do so, if you're a little bit in a playful mindset this morning, what you could do, I would suggest, is grab a piece of paper, and you don't have the full knowledge. I know you don't have the full knowledge of those 4 stories, but you probably grasp something. You have probably a good enough understanding of what these are. And what you could do is, while you watch this video, is just jot down what you think is part of which story. That would be a good exercise. I've done this exercise already, and then we're going to go through what I think it relates to each of the story. So I'm going to reshare my screen so that we have the proper sound, and then we're just going to play that video. So it's about 5 minutes. Pay attention. It's in English. It's it's fast paced. It's dynamic. I personally, I like that style. But here we might look at style, but I want you to focus on the substance and the structure of the video. You guys ready? Yes. All right. Let's see how this works.
Arcimoto. We build rides. Light, electric, ultra-efficient rides that are outrageously fun to drive. Because getting this with this is nuts. We build Arcimotos for people and for delivery, and for people who help people. We're a public company because we have a public mission, and we invite you to join us. I'm Mark. In 2007, I went looking for something that didn't exist. Because then and now, we drive crazy big, multi-ton extractive rigs for all the simple trips. Times everyone, we pave over half the city, gridlocked, around a world on fire. I wanted a light footprint electric vehicle. Affordable, fun, and dialed for the everyday. I couldn't find it, and thus, Arcimoto, and a new platform for mobility. Twin electric motor, front-wheel drive with a burly battery and a powertrain that sips electrons. We launched production of our flagship product, the Fun Utility Vehicle, in 2019. And from the response, we believe it lives up to the name.
This is really fun! Oh my God! It's woo! Oh my God, this is so fun!
Very cool. And wow, does it handle?
Everybody wants it when they see it. And they haven't even driven it yet. The real joy is when you get to drive it. And then you just get the feeling of what it's all about.
Hey Mark, what's up buddy? Just want to let you know how much I am enjoying my amazing Arcimoto. It is an absolute blast. People chasing me down in the neighborhood to see it.
Let me guess, you want one.
I'm going to buy shares.
Right on. At the onset of the pandemic, we launched the Deliverator to bring the benefits of Arcimoto's platform to last mile delivery of essential food and goods. The Deliverator's spacious storage suits a wide variety of fleet uses. Its svelte form maneuvers through traffic with ease and parks in spaces no full-size vehicle can. Saving fleet operators precious time means money that flows directly to the bottom line. And we launched the Rapid Responder to help those on the front lines achieve their missions more quickly.
I think that the Arcimoto is the perfect vehicle to implement in our city. It's lighter, it's more efficient, it's quicker. There's the cost savings that are associated with it in terms of sustainability, maintenance. I see this as a daily deployed apparatus. How come the cops aren't using one of these?
Finally, we announced the Roadster, Arcimoto's premium entry into the established class of pure on-road fun machines. We sell direct. Arcimoto adopters place pre-orders and configure options on the website, and vehicles are delivered directly to our customers. The curious can enjoy the Arcimoto driving experience at our rental centers, the first of which is now open in Key West. Our rental first model turns what is normally a costly hurdle to brand awareness into a revenue stream, and our partnership with HireCar aims to provide a similar model for gig Deliverator drivers. Every Arcimoto is built here at our factory in Oregon, the AMP, where we transform raw material through part cutting, forming, welding, machining, and final assembly, all under one roof. With the growing demand for alternative personal transportation around the world, highlighted by our thousands of FUV pre-orders, the seismic shift towards home delivery of food and goods, and over 50,000 fire stations in North America alone, we believe Arcimoto is poised for expansive growth. Meeting this demand through mass production is now our primary goal, and that's why our new collaboration with Detroit legend Sandy Munro is so exciting. The idea of scaling up production into the 50,000 plus units per year realm, what is your level of confidence that this collaboration will be able to pull that off?
I'm totally confident. I think three-wheel vehicles are going to be more popular than almost anything, as long as we can hit the right target price. And that's what we're doing. Quite frankly, you should have no problem hitting all those targets that you're looking to hit.
With the Munro team's help, we aim to prove our model can scale and this venture can go global. Arcimoto is and always has been powered by a community of stakeholders with whom we share a vision of sustainable transportation, clean skies, and a future that's a whole lot more fun. We hope you'll join us.
You're muted, Guillaume.
Thanks, Joshua. I was saying that I came across this company a few months ago when I was reading the news in the newspaper. It's a publicly traded company, so there was an article about them, and you can find this video as the main piece of communication on their website at arcimoto.com. So this is publicly available, and in my opinion, I think this video was designed for more than one audience. It was put together for people who are maybe curious about the product, the company, maybe people who want to buy, show it to other friends, but also towards the end, you can probably tell that it's also geared towards investors. When the CEO talks about ramping up production and talking to the Munro partners and so on. Let's dive in. So again, this is the model. These are the 4 stories we're looking for in this video. So wondering, you catch the origin story?
Yes. It started with I'm Mark, and I needed a thing, and it didn't exist.
It didn't exist. That's right. Yeah, it starts right away. This origin story is so beautifully put together. It expresses the main component of why the company exists, and it starts with the story of an individual. That's why the origin story in my model is in the individual quadrant here, is because we are all running our lives, and we run into those moments of wonder, of frustrations, anger. Sometimes something is not properly working for us, or we feel like it's unfair or unjust, or we want to change something. And in this free part of the world, we have the ability to say, hey, I want to do something about this, and I see an opportunity here to create a business that might have an impact for many other people. So that's the origin story is really the seed of the company. And I sometimes use the analogy of a tree, or a plant. The seeds is the little thing that sprouts, and then as the root systems grows, as the company grows, the seeds kind of disappears. We forget about it, and it's important to have it somewhere and remind the team why we started in the first place. And very often I bring this up with my own clients when they are in board meetings or making important decisions, and it's really helpful. The origin story is something that unfolds over time. That's the most relevant radical event that Mark lived, but he probably lived many other things through the course of the company. So in just I think this is about 50 words. We get a lot of why this company exists. So that's the point here. Let's move to the opportunity story. So what did you guys catch? Do you catch any details here?
This is where you talked about the current situation. Getting coffee with a 5-ton SUV is insane.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. Yes, it is part of the opportunity. I will say yes to this, but I think this line was more geared towards the perspective, because it's an opinion. It's how we see things. But there is, that's the thing with this with strategic narrative. It's not black and white. Sometimes messages or ideas can pertain to different areas. But just for the sake of the exercise, I actually put this message here in the perspective story, Joshua. We'll go back to this in just a second. In the opportunity story, what do we have? We have the fact that, so first of all, who's the character of the story? It's not Mark anymore. It's the people who have commuting, delivery, and response problems. It's hard to get somewhere. They want to live their life. They want to do their job, and it's hard to them. So this is really, you could call it your customer, right? I call it a community, because if you think about it in broader term as a real narrative, and you're seeking to build a movement, you shouldn't limit yourself to just a very narrow segment of customer. It's helpful to have very narrow, very well-defined customer segments, but you should keep a broader mindset around this. So for now, we build Arcimotos for people and for delivery and for people who help people. That's who the character is. And later in the video, the opportunity shows up at different times in the video. So notice that the strategic narrative is not something that happens in a given formatted sequence. It's not rigid. It's very fluid. It's a very dynamic concept. And you see it later in the video when he talks about the changes in our world, the fact that door-to-door deliveries are really on the rise. And there is obviously, during this pandemic time, higher pressure on fire departments, police departments, and people who have to respond quickly to situations. We're seeing different images that portray that change in the world. So an opportunity is very much tied to the context in which we live. That's the key idea for this one. Let's move to the perspective. So I saw it this way, because getting this with this, getting coffee with a 3-ton SUV is nuts. I put it here because that's an opinion. It's not an opinion that is shared by 100% of people. A very wide share of the population thinks it's perfectly normal. But Mark disagrees, and other people disagree. And so that perspective is really the foundational cog or part of the system here of a narrative. A narrative comes oftentimes in opposition to a commonly accepted truth that no one really challenged before. So that came from his origin story, that it was this moment of wait a minute, I have to stop doing that. I have to stop going to probably Starbucks, with my big Toyota SUV. Another facet of the perspective is that he sees his companies with a public mission. So it's not just for him or for a small group of people. It's for everyone. He positions it as such, and therefore the company is publicly traded. I would have to do more research on how they got there. I'm a little I'm missing probably information, missing detail, but at a high level, that's what we're getting here. Also, another facet of the perspective is how are we going to get there? Okay, it's great. You want to change that. You want to produce those vehicles, but really, how's this going to happen? Okay, well, there is a factory based in Oregon. He calls it the what was it again? The AMP. I don't know what the acronym stands for. I would have to look that up too, but this is where it happens. It's made in America, and it's made with it follows a specific process. So perspective story is really about how you intend to make this happen. What's the way? What's the ideal way we're going to get to that opportunity? Another metaphor I use is this idea of a vehicle, but a very metaphorical trajectory vehicle. Like what's the course? Or if you were sailing, right? You would have to take different tacks to get to that opportunity. This story lives in the internal but collective quadrant because there is a team, there is a culture, there is an organization, and the narrative is what keeps those people working together. Beyond the paycheck, beyond the job, there is also an exchange of values, of beliefs there that make those people motivated to commit to this company, to this brand.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the people driving around and having fun, is that part of the perspective also? Perspective story?
Well, totally. It's also in there. I mean, the perspective is that driving in an efficient vehicle shouldn't be boring. It should be fun. So yeah, that's spot on, Andy. We could also put it in there. I put it in the next one for another reason. But see, again, I'm untangling something very complex, multifaceted, and dynamic for the purpose of understanding this pattern. But you're right, it's a little bit of a bunch of stuff everywhere. But the perspective is, yes, they are about making these vehicles fun to drive. I actually saw one about a week ago on I-5 going south. It was going the other way. And this thing was just, there was good visibility and it was a straight. This thing was just flying. It looked very fun. I thought, oh, there is one. I want to drive one. So I know this company, but also it was delivering on the perspective for sure. Okay, finally, the product story. Finally, notice how I always bring the product story last. It's because I believe that most companies just talk about their product. They're very good at talking about their product. They know the product in and out because they've built it, developed it, and they know it by heart. And it's very rewarding to talk about your product. But people don't necessarily have the context to understand why this product matters so much. And in this piece of communication, what we see is that they really did such a great job at establishing the context first before they talk about they just focus on the product. However, in terms of word count, I think this video is probably very, very much focused on the product. So what do we learn? Very quickly, we know what the product is. It takes one line and one picture. This is it. Not time. They're not trying to be cute or clever or funny or they just get straight to the point. Maybe it's because they're engineers, so they like to call a cat a cat. All right, so this is the thing. The product story is very well told by the customers here, and we have several examples of it. We hear people saying, "This is really fun. Oh my God, very cool." There is even a celebrity, Mark Wahlberg. You've probably seen him in several movies, saying, "Hey, Mark, I want to tell you, I love my Arcimoto. People chase me down the street to look at it." Okay, this is a much more powerful way to tell what the product does than you saying it. This is a very, very, it's social proof, and you're really capturing. They do such a great job at capturing live in a very candid situation, very authentic, in a very candid mode, what the product does to the driver. So at least we know what the product does to the driver. It's fun, it handles well, it gets you to where you want to go fast, and so on. Now, another aspect of this narrative is that it has three different type of customers, or characters, as I like to call them. We've got, actually there are four, but there are three new ones. The first one is just everyone. Everyone can commute with this vehicle. But then they branched into, and they're focusing on delivery people. So people who do deliveries. The next one is first responders, so fire departments, police departments. And then the third one is people who like to go, have this roadster kind of premium version of the vehicle. That's the third one here. All right, that's the breakdown of this company through the strategic narrative meta-helm model. It's one way to look at it. And just to give you a summary, and I think that's really where the power lies when you do this exercise of building a strategic narrative for your company. The power lies in the ability to synthesize this on one sheet. That gives you a powerful tool to fight against confusion, misalignment, waste of time in meetings where we forget what we are here for, what we're doing. So this is a very actionable artifact that could almost see, some people see it as a mission and vision statement. I think it's a lot more powerful than this because it's dynamic and it tells you, it just gives you an entry point to a much broader set of stories. So it gives you a lot more meaning than just a one-line statement that was kind of wordsmith with standard terms. Anyways, that's another conversation. But there you have it. In the origin, there was no light footprint vehicle, affordable, fun, and died for the everyday. Mark couldn't find it, so he thought, what if I make it? The opportunity is sustainable transportation, clean skies, and future. That's a whole lot fun. That's a whole lot more fun. Sorry. See how the opportunity is not just for the company; it's for everyone. Of course, out of this, if Arcimoto succeed in providing a great product at an accessible price point that delivers on this, they're gonna harvest some profit. They're gonna be successful at it. But this is a mindset that is interesting because it's built from the get-go. It's not a purpose that it's built in later in the history of the company. It's by design what this company does. A perspective story. Getting coffee with a 3-ton vehicle is nuts. I had to pick one. The perspective here is probably deeper than this, as we discussed. But I had to. That was the most salient one in the video. I'm like, oh gosh, this is it. Like, this is the one thing we can take away. And finally, you got it, the vehicle. All right.
Guillaume, I have a question.
Yes.
I've seen a shorter version of this that wasn't speaking to the investor, the investor audience, and that part felt sort of glued on to the end because I had seen it that way, and I didn't like. It's a different. It's like a second product. Like you can buy stock in our company, and
right. Yeah, I'm so glad you bring
different opportunity. You can make money off this movement.
Yep. So what's the question, Joshua? I love the comment. What's the question?
Where do you put that in the narrative? All of that stuff, or does it form a second cycle of stories slightly removed?
I think it's an expansion of the product story, and let me show you what I mean by this. This is a slide from my workshop, and when I go into the module 5 of the workshop, first of all, the first thing I do is define what I mean by product. For the purpose of this framework, I had to just pick one word, which is product, but behind it, it can be anything. It can be so many things. The product in reality, and I'll come back to that list to answer your question, but the product is anything that you offer to a community of people to satisfy a common desire, whether it's a tangible good or guidance, or maybe it's an information product, or I mean, you can be very, very creative. And notice at the end of the list here is business model, because I do think that what is sold here in this video is a business model, especially for investors. Investors want to they're buying a business model that they trust, that will get them a return on their investment. There is that facet of it. The shiny object is the 3-wheel vehicle, but around it, I mean, here's another example in this business. One of the things they're starting to do is to rent them. You can actually to try it and to give it a test. You can go to one of their sites. They have a handful of sites now in the USA where you can actually rent the vehicle for a few hours. That's another part of the product. It's a service. So I agree with you, Joshua. There's definitely that in the narrative. I would say it's a branch of it.
What I found interesting is, although in the video it has all 4 quadrants in one video, I think it leans heavily on the right side, which is totally logical because it's the outside perspective.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is a video, and it's the caveat I made at the beginning of the session is that I mean, it's posted on the website. It's very outside. We see a little bit of the inside of the model here because first of all, we're talking to the CEO is talking to us. He has a specific voice, demeanor. He has a specific demeanor. He has a specific behavior. So we're seeing this. We're kind of almost guessing what it is to work with him on a daily basis. We see him with goggles, walking the manufacturer, talking to somebody on the phone. So we see a little bit, but it's very limited.
Yeah.
I would love to pick up the phone, call Mark and say, hey, can I visit your factory? Can I talk to you? I've got this model, and I don't know, maybe he'll say, oh, this is totally not that. In that case, it would be a problem because it means that what's going on inside the company and what is told outside is disjointed. It's disconnected. That creates a lot of tension. It's a very costly thing, and it's a very costly situation. Unfortunately, I see all the time.
I think there's one other product.
More product.
One other view of the product, which is manufacturing jobs for people who might be displaced by the transition to different kinds of industry.
I even had the Sandy, the legend guy, who probably was an automotive manufacturer somewhere in Detroit or something.
Yes. His whole career was to figure out manufacturing processes. I love this. Look, I'm adding this because did you watch last week's meeting, Joshua? Or were you? No, you were. So last week I went over. Okay, I'm way over time, but that's okay. It's so interesting that let's still do that. Last week I went through the case of Mod Pizza. And Mod Pizza's purpose and product is, in fact, jobs, right? And not just any kind of jobs. It's fair jobs with good benefits, accessible to people who would not necessarily have in other companies have the possibility to access because they don't have the background that is required to get to other jobs. So I love it. I just added it to my list. Thank you. Especially today when we were displaced and there are jobs. There is a company performing, in Oregon that you can apply to. Great. Any other questions before we wrap this up?
What I found interesting is that you can use your model to align all the different stories to form the narrative. So you don't have to have a plan and everyone has to stick to the brand Bible to get the same feeling. Because if everyone understands your model and understands those stories and internalizes them, then it's much easier to become second nature to just be your brand.
That's the idea there. It's not I walk you through it as a certain sequence, but even in the videos, it kind of goes all over the place,
Yeah.
You're right. How would that? Tell me more about this, Checo. I think this is such an interesting idea.
The thing is, I come from a background of brand strategy. I did some reading, some research in brand strategy, and if you do brand strategy, the thing is, yes, you have a brand Bible and you have all those shiny objects. You have your client avatar and your logo. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know how to use it, it's worth nothing to you because you can have a very shiny outside and on the inside it's all rotten and you go in a different direction. It's what you said, there's a dissonance.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it takes a lot of energy to align all those ideas in a company. And if you have a narrative that is built from 4 stories, which everyone can identify, hopefully, in the company, then it's much easier for everyone in the company to, well, live what the brand promises, actually.
Fantastic comment. I would not said it this way. I see exactly what you mean. I don't come from the same background as you. Obviously, I am a management consultant. I come from strategy, but I also saw the problem that you're talking about. I saw it firsthand. That's also why I started working with. That's why I studied MetaHelm. It's a very costly. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of energy to align people around the same idea. What is interesting, Jacob, you've been on my list for how long now? Just a few days, I think, right?
A week maybe, but I've watched your videos and saw your talks.
Yeah.
Because I've been on Philip's website and talked with him for about 1.5 years.
So how hard was it to understand this concept?
For me, it's very easy. It's very clear.
Okay.
But I have a background in storytelling also because I studied media.
Okay. Yeah. So
it's not that hard. So it's just 4 stories you take and they form your narrative. And when you have it written down, it's very easy. But to get to this part, I think is quite hard.
Yes, it's the building that takes work.
I have to go pretty soon, but I would just want to add, there are some companies that on the external, they talk about an opportunity and a story, and they talk about a perspective and values, but on the inside, if you work inside, you don't see any of that happening in reality.
Yeah.
And I think that is an example of where people probably don't like their jobs. They don't believe in their company. They are cynical.
Like that, disconnected.
Yeah, it doesn't. It leads to turnover of employees, attrition.
Yeah, and this is very much what I've been trying to say lately in my daily publication is the fact that more and more I feel like people want to work for a company where things are integrated and connected together, and that's what movements do very well. So I'll leave us with that. Thank you so much for coming today, for joining. I hope to see you again next week. I build a list of about 20 examples, and I'm going to go one by one every week. If you have an idea of a company you'd like to test, please email me, send me your ideas, your requests. Let's work together on it. Next week, I don't know exactly which one yet I'm going to talk about. It depends on how much research I can do, but we'll go through another case study. Thank you so much for joining.